So we are officially recording for prosperity's sake. All right. Welcome everyone to our corporate philanthropy panel. This is always a popular session. We're so excited that you're here. A little bit of housekeeping on the front end. We have some prepared questions for our panelists that they were sent in advance. And obviously you're welcome to jump in, add your own questions, chime in on the chat. We will be monitoring the chat for other questions, and look forward to engaging with this amazing group of corporate leaders. My co-host, Beth Wells with the University of South Carolina, is also a member of the AFP programs team, and will be helping to moderate the panel. And without going further, I'm going to quickly run through the bios of our panelists. I'm sure most of you recognize or know them already and know that they're amazing. I promised I wouldn't read their bios word for word because, well, that's boring for everyone. But just a quick overview. Elizabeth Inquo Johnson is the Director of Community Relations for Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina, and she has been with Blue Cross for 21 years, which is amazing. Elizabeth has a vast background of experience, both with her education and working for other corporations, and has been involved with a number of organizations in the community, including the Columbia Design League, Palmetto Center for Women, and Prisma Health Foundation. So I think you'll see that all of our panelists have, in addition to their corporate work, some community involvement that adds to their perspective as well on this panel. Next, we have the lovely Stephanie Jones, who leads corporate philanthropy in South Carolina for Dominion Energy. And prior to Dominion becoming Dominion, it was SCANA, and we all worked with SCANA and SC, ENG, and Stephanie there too. So she's been with us through the evolution. Stephanie's got an amazing background in corporate communications and PR, and has also worked with the Riverbank Zoo and Garden Society Board, the Prisma Health Foundation Board, and the Midlands Board for Multiplying Good SC. We are welcoming a new panelist today, Trevor Knox, who is Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Terminix, which is the 10th largest pest control company in the United States. And we're really excited that Trevor is here to represent a family created and led business, and to bring that perspective to our corporate philanthropy panel. Trevor is now the Vice President of Sales and Marketing and is responsible for the direction and management of the sales and marketing strategy for Terminix, which has over $137 million in business in 2017. So I imagine it's booming even more now that people have been home for the past year and realize that they have bugs at their house. And then another new panelist for us today is Dominic, who is the CEO of Optus Bank. Optus is a minority depository institution, which is an FDIC designation. I didn't want to mess that up. But Dominic has a vast background in banking and in philanthropy. He served as the finance chair for the Midlands Art Conservatory, on the finance committee with the Women's Rights and Empowerment Network, on the board for SCASED and the South Carolina Bankers Association, and has what I think is a really cool family mission statement to ensure that all people have a fair chance to live productive lives. And so you can tell that for all of our panelists, giving back and being part of the community is a huge part of their personal and their corporate missions. And so I'm really excited to turn it over to Beth to launch right into the questions. And again, please make sure that if you're not on the panel, that you are on mute. Feel free to chime in on the chat, and we look forward to a very productive 54 minutes with you to check in about the state of corporate philanthropy in the Midlands.
Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for taking time to join us today for this amazing panel. So as Mary Dale said, at the very end, we'll open up the Q&A and you'll have two options. You can either turn on your microphone and ask your question, or you can put it in the chat box. And Mary Dale's going to monitor the chat box for us as we move along. So we'll jump right on into our first question today. So we would like to ask the panel a little bit about your corporate giving. And some of those questions include how many gifts you make, the average size, priorities for funding, and is there a season to your giving? So instead of calling on somebody, I'm going to see who would like to step up to the plate first and tell us a little bit about those questions, and I'll be happy to repeat those since it's about a 5-part question one. Who wants to go first?
I'm glad to start because I actually have some news I do want to share with folks that may be relevant to those who are on the call today. So with Dominion Energy, we accept grants throughout the year. Our primary focus are 4 categories, which include community vitality, human needs, environmental stewardship, and then also education. So the bulk of our giving is focused in those areas. We do have a smaller sponsorship budget as well for, various events and activities when we're allowed to have those again. That's certainly an area of focus as well. But we primarily focus on our footprint in South Carolina, which comprises the Midlands, the Aiken area, the Low Country, and then also in the Florence PD area as well. So we really don't do much in the upstate, but cover the majority of the state from our giving standpoint. I will say one of the things I wanted to share is that we've just opened up our Critical Community Needs Grants program. So it opened at the beginning of April and will run through May 31st. And so that's an opportunity for eligible 501c3s to apply for grants of up to $25,000. And they primarily focus on meeting those basic human needs. And we know that there's certainly a growing need for that, especially all that we've been through over the past year with COVID. So these are grants that will help those in the community as it relates to food insecurity, housing and shelter, access to healthcare, including mental health care and other similar needs. So that's available on our website right now if you are a nonprofit working in those areas. And our website's dominionenergy.com/foundation. But at the same time, we also accept grants related to that throughout the year. But this is just an opportunity for those who are specifically working in that area to have the opportunity, to perhaps have a little bit higher grant funding than they might otherwise receive. But we do accept grants throughout the year and really look to see what we can do to help make a positive impact in the communities we serve. And I may have missed a question there, Beth, so I apologize.
You did great. Thank you so much. Who would like to jump in next?
Beth, I'll go next. I'll start by saying that we're not as sophisticated as maybe Dominion is in our direction with donations and in our strategy. In fact, it's probably evolved more quickly over the past several years. Historically, we're a very decentralized organization. We cover South Carolina, Western Third of North Carolina, and we allow the branches and the region level management to make decisions with a discretionary fund that they can use for business development to help fund the employees' baseball team or any partnership they see need in their community. And then at the corporate level, which we're here in Columbia, executive team does have some discretion on giving that's sort of up to their own relationships, however they feel is necessary. What's really been exciting over the past 3 years, I think now, we do have a centralized collective effort, a relationship with Habitat for Humanity. And that's mainly because it fits our, we have a strong mission statement that we cover every meeting. And part of it is that our services protect and enhance the living and working environments of our customers and our communities, right? And so you take our skill set of sort of blue collar, it's home focused. We want to be focused on helping our community. Next thing you realize, Habitat for Humanity is sort of a really good partner. And so not only that, they cover our entire footprint, which is sort of a funny footprint. And so that's a relationship that we've committed to over the past couple of years. And it also allows for us to go out and do a day of work, and selected people can come and work together. And there's some team camaraderie that can be built through that while achieving that mission statement. So we're a little bit different from maybe Dominion or Blue Cross. We definitely want to be a part of our communities and achieve our mission appropriately. And it's something we're excited to see where it goes in the future. So how was that? Is that a
That's
good
perfect.
Okay, good.
And we really are excited to have someone that's on a more smaller family related type of industry. It's always good to hear from our larger corporate groups, but more of a smaller family owned. It's great to have your perspective this year on things.
And I can talk about that later. So
Excellent. If anybody else would like to chime in, please do so. Otherwise, we can move on to the next question.
I'm happy to jump in. I'll try to be real brief. This is actually the 75th anniversary of Blue Cross. So we've been in this community for a really long time. I think as a corporation, from our executives down to our employees, we're very committed to our community. We've been engaged in many different initiatives over the years. So that's definitely a legacy that I'm very proud, in my 21 years of being with the company, very proud to be affiliated with a company that really has been very community focused in everything they do. We work with probably close to 700 different organizations every year. Just about every month, we're probably reviewing close to 100 applications. Obviously we're not able to fund everything that comes our way, but we review year round. It's really a constant. It's a constant for me and the two other wonderful ladies that work with me in corporate giving. I really can't say that there's an average gift level that we do, because it really does run the gamut. But the great thing is, for Blue Cross, we are able to support like little league teams, so we can do things on a very small level to larger initiatives that United Way organizations, larger organizations are involved in. So we have flexibility in that respect. But, our core business is health insurance. Of course, our focus is going to be on health and human service organizations. That really makes sense for us. But we understand that a robust community is made up of many different facets. The arts is important, economic development, diversity, civic engagement. So we certainly do some giving in other arenas too. But most of our giving is really health and human service focused, and then education probably next.
Fantastic. All right, excellent. So I know this next question, everybody's probably tired of hearing it, but it's always good to hear a new perspective on it. But how has your corporate giving strategy changed since COVID?
I'll start. It hasn't changed much for us at all. We've maintained the same relationship with Habitat for Humanity. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do some of the field activities that we would like to have done with our teammates, but it remains the same, to be quite honest.
Good. Dom, you want to jump in?
Well, I was going to share just a little bit of a slightly different perspective. So, Optus Bank is a fairly small bank, and we're one of 18 Black-owned banks in the country. Just a few years ago, we were really tiny, and we certainly have made significant progress in the state and nationally. And so we're now starting to really look at really developing more strategic sort of giving and sponsorship policies. In my previous life, I worked also with several philanthropic institutions and foundations, Kellogg Foundation, the Walton Family Foundation, and others, helping them with their philanthropy. So I'd love to get back into having a little bit of a opportunity to do that. Meanwhile, what we do currently is really we focus on our core mission, sort of like Elizabeth talked about. Our mission is to really address primarily the racial wealth gap, but we work everything in our bank according to our values, which is to address the disparities that exist and do it through banking and services. But we also support organizations like REN, for example, because of their economic justice work, or we work with Adventure Museum on their financial education outreach initiatives, or we work with other nonprofits. We try to really focus our initiatives where we can really support our partners that do business with us and make sure that they are mission aligned. So that's our focus. It has not changed very much during the COVID era, but it has certainly intensified in a way because the demand is so much greater, particularly with the organizations that are impacted by the front lines and frontline workers that serve the frontline workers. And we know that COVID has really disproportionately impacted both communities of color, minority, women-owned businesses. Really, the frontline workers are disproportionately overrepresented in communities of color and minority communities. So we've been really hard hit with the demand for services and support. And quite frankly, we're struggling to figure out how to address it, how to keep up, both with our just regular financial assistance that we provide to all of our businesses, but also through other supports we can provide.
Thank you. That's really good to know. And thanks for all y'all are doing for the community as well. Stephanie, anything changed since COVID on y'all's end?
And just to piggyback on what he said, we've certainly seen a greater demand over the past year. We were primarily focused on human needs as one of our major areas of giving to begin with, but certainly looked at opportunities to add to that normal giving last year, and then look to see how we could help organizations across the state. I know we partnered with the Central Carolina Community Foundation to support their 1SC fund for COVID relief last year. And then across our company footprint overall, we provided $1 million in contributions to nonprofit organizations across our footprint who were specifically focused on helping with COVID relief efforts. So, we've got employees that are out in the field every single day talking and working directly with customers. So it does allow us the opportunity to really get, direct feedback in those local communities and better understand what those needs are and, how they might be different from, say, the Low Country to the Midlands, and what we can do to pivot and make sure that we're helping where that need is the greatest at that time.
Wonderful. Elizabeth, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I echo what everyone else has really talked about. I was listening to a philanthropy workshop yesterday, and the stat that they shared it was from Johns Hopkins University. They did a study and they estimated that 1.6 million nonprofit jobs were lost between February and May of last year. So, everybody this is the first time in a long time that I think our entire world has been impacted. Everybody on every single level has been impacted by COVID. So while businesses are operating as, we're able to operate as normal, these are very unique times that we're operating in. And it's forced everybody to think differently about how they do their giving, to think differently about the communities in which they live. And I think one of the things, because we have been home, we're so hyper-focused on what's going on with COVID. And then, of course, Memorial Day and everything that occurred with George Floyd, and subsequently, everybody is just, I think these are a lot of issues regarding racial inequity have been existing for a tremendous period, a long time. But I think COVID, with our, being confined at home, working in a very different environment, it's forced everybody to look and pay greater attention than we probably would have before to address these issues and deal with these problems that exist in our community. So we definitely, it's business as usual for us, but it's business as unusual. We're just forging forward and assisting in as many different areas as we can, just thinking a little bit differently about our programs.
That's a good way to put it. That's really amazing. And I think that's also a really good segue into our next question, which is, does your company incorporate equity into their giving strategies? So for example, do you all at your companies direct a portion of funding to minority-led organizations or minority initiatives? Elizabeth, would you like to go ahead and take that one?
Sure, happy to. We've had long-term relationships with lots of different organizations. Definitely last year, we were very purposeful. We provided some immediate recovery relief for the 1SC fund that Stephanie mentioned earlier, did some other things with the United Way because we knew there were some immediate needs that needed to be addressed right away. But our CEO was very thoughtful in his approach, kind of looking at where some of those disparities lies, where there were going to be some really long-term critical issues that were going to affect our community. We did some work with Senior Resources. We did some work with HBCUs. And we've had relationships with both of those with several different colleges and Senior Resources for many years. So it really wasn't anything unique and different that we were doing. We were just really amplifying support that we had been providing over the years. You know, so like I said, I don't know that we necessarily have very deliberately allocated funding. I think we really have just amplified what we've been doing and recognize, you know, and developing those relationships, sometimes even beyond just the corporate philanthropy, looking at ways that we can engage more students from HBCU colleges into our internship program and linking them up with HR, and just finding other ways to even engage our employees with some of these organizations.
Fantastic. Who would like on the panel to address that next?
I'll just say, you know, like I started with, we have a series of boxes we're trying to achieve. First off, we hope that whatever engagement we have with our community enhances everybody's lives who's in need. And because, particularly with our relationship with Habitat, it allows us to check a variety of boxes. It sort of limits those who we can give. So we do hope it enhances those who are in need. And unfortunately, it's hard for us to shift from that from year to year. So we hope it's beneficial either way.
Excellent. Dom, would you or Stephanie like to add anything to?
Go ahead, Stephanie, if you got, I can comment as well.
I would just echo, especially what Elizabeth said. We had already been doing a lot of that, but you know, the events of last year and, you know, just additional opportunities for us to take a step back and learn more, not only from our nonprofit partners, but our employees as well, just really gave us the opportunity to, you know, further amplify what we were doing. For example, additional support to HBCUs, specifically in South Carolina. We were already working closely with them, but again, you know, looking at ways and opportunities for us to further engage with them, whether it's from a workforce development, you know, opportunity standpoint, support that helps them with scholarships or general operating needs, et cetera. You know, we've been able to amplify those conversations and support there. And then also looking a lot at what organizations are doing at a local level and a national level as it relates to community rebuilding, social justice, opportunities for, you know, the community overall to learn from one another and help healing where that's needed as well. So it's really just given us a greater opportunity to, you know, engage in these conversations more than we might have otherwise done, and to continue to learn from others, you know, both within our company and within our communities as well.
That's excellent.
Only thing I would add is, you know, we were founded, our origins over 100 years ago to address the really disparities in access to capital and opportunities, particularly as it relates to the systemic issues. So we still live that mission. So everything we do has a lens of how can we close the disparities created by that, you know, 400-year legacy of disparate treatment. And so organizations we support and organizations we work with, they all share that mission to some extent. So that it creates a natural alignment. We don't have to be even explicit about it because it's in our DNA to make sure that we address those disparities. So it's kind of a really not even a mandate. It's just how we behave, how we support our customers and communities.
Excellent. Our next question, Trevor, you've kind of already touched on this a little bit. So the next question is, who makes the decisions around corporate giving, and are there separate pools of funding for executives, or is there an employee-led giving committee? And again, thank you, Trevor. I think you've already kind of touched on that a little bit, but who would like to address that question next?
I'm happy to jump in. We give put a lot of thought into everything that we do, and every request that we receive, whether it's, you know, like I said, for a small little league team or, you know, a larger initiative. You know, at certain levels, I'm able to make the decision. And then, you know, above and beyond certain levels, it goes to our CEO for consideration. So it really is, you know, it's a small group of people. We have executives that serve with various initiatives and different boards. Sometimes they'll bring things to us. Sometimes even board members will bring opportunities to us. And then, the great thing is like our involvement with Harvest Hope. And I would imagine prior to me arriving at the company, Blue Cross had been working with them, but about 20 some years ago, they had an issue with their warehouse. And one of our employees said, hey, wouldn't it be great if we, collected food to help them? It was around holiday season. It was going to severely impact their ability to feed at a really critical time. And so our employees, got together, gathered food and money. It was a great event, but that kind of became this much larger program that the company decided to do, where we do a campaign every year and, collect. I can't even recall off the bat how much food and money is collected for Harvest Hope. But that was really something that was a very grassroots initiative that came from our employees and then became a much larger corporate focus. And to the point that, we've supported them on a corporate level. And then we have a foundation that also supports several of their initiatives. So, it really just depends. But I think we have the great flexibility that it can be led by our CEO, initiative by me, or even our employees.
Excellent. Stephanie, anything to add to that?
Very similar in that a lot of our decisions are made here locally. So when we are receiving requests every day of the year, we are giving them the attention they deserve and making sure that we're fully understanding the request and the needs related to it. When we get a request in, it'll come through my department first, and we'll, if we know employees are engaged with the group, or say they serve on a board or volunteer actively with a group, we'll seek their feedback on the request. If it's a community specific request, we'll seek input from our local managers and those who are out in the field in those local communities to get their feedback and recommendations as well. And then ultimately, my team and I present those recommendations and the request itself to what we call a statewide community investment board. And that's comprised of our employees and our leadership, and they review those requests with us, look at those opportunities, and help us make those decisions. If it's a request of a certain amount, it then may go through an additional layer of review. But for the most part, our giving is based here in South Carolina and looked at here in South Carolina, and those decisions are made here, again, through a combination of our philanthropy department, our leadership here in South Carolina, and then most importantly, our employees too. As Elizabeth said, they really help us guide, what we have the opportunity to support and why, and then help a lot with grassroots opportunities as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. Dom, anything to add? No?
Not on this one. Thank you.
Okay, very good. So the next question, everybody that's on the Zoom today is going to be perking up on this one. So here's the next question. What criteria do you use to select nonprofits to receive funds? Do you have specific things you're looking for in a nonprofit partner?
Yeah, not to be a broken record, but we for our customers, we're focused on maintaining the integrity of the structure of their home, enhancing the health of living inside of a home. Roaches can produce unhealthy environments, and so because that's sort of our wheelhouse, that's where the selection of habitat comes from. We know the home. We got repair teams. That's just where our natural intuitive skill set is. And so that was a major component of that being our central sort of collective corporate strategy, if you will. So beyond that, then there's the discretionary funds that the local teams can have, and we want them to support their community as they see fit. I think honestly, the only requirement I've given them, the region and lower levels, is at least create an opportunity to shake a hand. Some of that is business minded, to be quite honest, but at the same time, it's an opportunity to learn the realities of those who are in our community. And so that's where we talk about being a people business, where every business is a relationship business. And that's where we get better as an organization. It's also where we get better as a community. So that's my only requirement for those who have discretionary funds. So
Excellent. And I think you made a key point there when you say it's a relationship. And I think our whole panel will agree that building those relationships are huge in moving forward with anybody. Elizabeth, would you like to add?
Yeah, one of the things, just having worked in this field for a while now, I think the mission of the nonprofit is always important. I think, what you do well, I don't want to say stay in your lane because that sounds, I think there are always opportunities, but I think over the years, there's some requests that we'll receive. Several years ago, everybody was talking about STEM, which is critically important. But for some organizations, it just was not a fit. You get a proposal and they weave in some STEM facts, and it was just, I just don't see how you're going to achieve this knowing what you do so well. So I always encourage organizations, I think, don't try to mold yourself to fit something that's really not part of your true mission statement, that's going to catapult the funding you're requesting, catapult your organization forward. I think that's so important. There's the second thing, there's some organizations we've worked with that have such a strong volunteer base. I think that is so critical. I don't want to name names because there are many organizations that have great volunteer bases, but one in particular was really started by parents. And it was a diabetes organization that was started by parents, and just going to their walk every day, envisioning the advancements that the organization has made over the years, you can really see where that parental involvement, that volunteer involvement has been so critical for the success of this organization. I think being financially stable, having diverse funding sources are really important. It's really difficult if you're coming to one entity and really trying to sustain yourself over one large ask each year in, year out. At some point, we're not able to always continue to fund long-term at the same levels as we have funded. And then I think just being, and that really goes to being creative in your fundraising approaches. And then I think, kind of like Trevor said, I think being able to collaborate with these organizations, I think is really important. Being able to develop relationships and getting to know them, and being able to help them, when they're coming to us for funding is really important.
Fantastic. Stephanie or Dom, anything to add?
I'll echo. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go for it.
I'll echo what Trevor and Elizabeth said, and that, it is a lot of, we've received so many requests throughout the year, and we, can't fund them all. And there are so many good requests that we receive. So really, I think that's where that relationship building and that collaboration, and then, an ongoing communication as well, to help us better understand what your needs are, what you've accomplished, what you're hoping to accomplish, the impact that you're having, based on your mission as well. And then opportunities for us to partner together and help tell that story and help you further, achieve your mission and those goals related to it. That's something that's important for us to understand. And we know that, nonprofits vary in size and staff. And so, not everyone has a full-time communications person or, a particular role like that. But just a general touch base throughout the year, helps us, just kind of have a pulse check of what's going on and, how it's going and what we might be able to do even better next year if we're able to partner together again. So, I really think that ongoing relationship building and communication just really helps us better understand what we can do, not only with that particular nonprofit, but in the community or that area of focus overall as well.
Dom?
Yeah, and I would add to the relationship comment, just having been a fundraiser and to a great extent, I'm still a fundraiser, and because I have to raise equity and relationships for our bank from all kinds of entities. So I think that having the relationship and having a real mission alignment. So finding corporations that have an explicit focus on whatever the core mission of the nonprofit is critical. That makes it a lot easier, and you don't have to stretch. I also ran a fundraising team at my previous bank that had a philanthropic arm that was actually making grants but also raising money, and it was always a struggle to find the right fit and with corporations of all sizes. So I would encourage the the fundraisers that are here to find a really try to look for a really strong mission fit that the corporation has an angle, and I appreciate what Trevor said. You know, whatever is the perfect alignment, you know, we have a duty to our shareholders and to our you know, to our stakeholders to make sure that we're maximizing the positive impact on the community, and we do that frequently through our regular business. So, you know, Trevor by supporting healthy homes, and Elizabeth by making sure we have healthy communities, and Stephanie, of course, you know, key part of our infrastructure. So to me, that's where I always started as a fundraiser is what's the anchor? What's the hook? What's the fit? Do I have something to add? Can I add value to that corporate entity by partnering with them and then getting to know them? And I would say there's a lot of it is trust, and that relationship frequently is even more important than a great proposal or a great ask.
Thank you. That's well said there. So I know that y'all, as Elizabeth had mentioned, I mean, she gets over 100 applications a year and all. And I know that as fundraisers, we really want to be mindful and respectful of how we go about approaching you. So our next question for the panel is, how do you like to be approached by nonprofits, whether it's an email, a phone call, showing up at your door and hope to see you, you know, what's the best way to be respectful and to reach y'all and to really get our foot in the door, so to speak? Stephanie, I'm gonna let you go first on that one.
Okay. Well, you know, I would say it's a combination of things, really. If it's a group that we've got an existing relationship with and we're already talking to them, you know, at multiple times throughout the year, you know, a quick phone call or an email, or when we're able to get together more in person, you know, grabbing a quick cup of coffee or something like that is always great. Just to kind of hear the latest update, you know, what's going on, what your, you know, plans are moving forward, and how we might be able to partner together. That's always really helpful. If it's a group we've not worked with before or that we haven't worked with in a while, you know, sometimes it's great, especially during this time, for us to set up a time to talk, you know, via Zoom or Microsoft Teams, and just really get to know one another that way, hear what your overall goals and objectives are, and how it might fit into, you know, our needs and your needs as well from a potential partnership standpoint. But, you know, it's always okay to give us a call or send an email. We might not be able to respond to you immediately, but, you know, because I'm constantly trying to keep up with all the emails in my inbox, but I know that we want to, and we want to communicate with you. We want to hear from you. So if you don't hear from us immediately, you know, please know that you can always give us a call or send us another email, and you're not bothering us. Just sometimes there may be other things going on at the same time, but definitely just reaching out to us. And then ultimately, when we get to the point where you would be submitting a grant request, we do have a formal process on our website. And for those that we've worked with before, they're familiar with it. And for those who you haven't worked with before, you know, we can walk them through that process and help them understand it before they formally submit something to us.
That's very encouraging. Trevor, what would you like to add?
I was trying to think about how to answer the question, because there are a variety of ways to get your hands in the pot. I don't know what the word is, but again, we're decentralized. It's going to be relationship driven, I believe. I'm probably not, I personally probably won't respond well to a cold call. I've had to say no to my friends. I've had to say no to the United Way a few times. I'm on the board of the United Way, you know, so I think generally, if you ask, if you're doing a fundraiser, an auction of some sort, we can easily provide a auction item. Tracy Hall is our communications director. We can put a little package. She loves putting these packages together. We'll put it in a free mosquito service, and there's some beer and some wine, and some outdoor activities. And that might be something small that we can provide for you that we'd be more than happy to provide. You know, we don't have a formalized process. We don't have an application process. And so, it goes a little bit further that we haven't really, I'm trying to figure out how to talk about this, but you may have seen our brand on a nonprofit event or back of a shirt or whatever, and it wasn't necessarily from the organization, it was from local ownership. And so, so if you know some of the right people, and they are willing to, that's where it gets a little tricky. And not only organizationally is it decentralized, once you get into ownership, you may see some opportunities there. So I'm going to say the short answer is it's very relationship driven. So.
Excellent. Elizabeth?
Yeah, I was, again, this is something I heard. I don't even know where I heard this, but they said, ask for money and you get advice, ask for advice and you get money. And I think that's really more like if you're going to an individual donor, but to me, it's just so profound. I wrote it down and have it on a Post-it note on my computer. But I think, yeah, I mean, I think like everyone has said, it is really about relationships. I think, I worked in nonprofit before I went to Blue Cross, and, they thought for certain, it was a given that Blue Cross would be able to support their organization. And it took several years of us really taking the time to get to know one another, get to understand what it was that your organization did before we were able to kind of get them into the process. So relationships. I think, I have no problem. I think obviously cold calls, cold emails, cold requests for $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, and I know nothing about your organization, it really doesn't make sense. You need to just take the time. Like Stephanie said, our time is limited because it's just a handful of us even operating in this space, but take the time for a phone call or a quick meeting that we can have to just better understand what it is you're looking for, and probably be able to give you some guidance in how to make that ask will go a long way.
Wonderful. Dom, anything to add?
Yes, I would say, just looking at some of the comments or questions too in the chat box, but I think there's a vast difference between corporate philanthropy, foundation philanthropy, and individual giving. There's a huge difference in how you approach it, but there is one common theme, and that is there's always a way to short circuit a lot of the processes through relationships. So I used to work with the Kellogg Foundation in the Mississippi Delta, and who knew the program officer and how they got to know them. Frequently they were more successful, even though a cold application may have been fantastic from another nonprofit. They didn't even get a look. So I think having that relationship, which I know is sometimes almost a little unfair, because you may have a great organization with high impact, but you may not have that connection, you may not have the relationship. In corporate philanthropy, what I've seen, and I used to serve on the awards for corporate philanthropy in Arkansas, and so every year we look at all the corporate philanthropic sort of practices, and I think to Trevor's point, or I think Elizabeth mentioned it, having a relationship, but also making sure you cultivate it and you recognize that the corporation is doing it for a little different reason. It's not just pure philanthropy, right? It is building awareness of their brand and their values in the community. And so it's having that relationship, but then also recognizing that entity in the community is important. I know it does seem a little self-serving, but that's just the blunt, I think, reality that the organizations that are more successful raising sponsorships and support from corporations do promote their partners, do promote their organizations. And so I would encourage to do that even proactively. If you're approaching a corporation about doing business with you, make sure you're doing business with them, or find a way to show, hey, I'm part of your ecosystem in that local community, and I'm doing business with you, and I have a high impact nonprofit that has a mission that is very accretive to your bottom line, to your shareholders. If you support us, you are going to thrive. You're going to be better off than if you don't support us.
Thank you. So our next question is dealing with stewardship. And I know that a lot of companies or even individuals, when they give to an organization, sometimes think, why are they wasting this money giving me this, $90 leather bound whatever to say thank you? Well, we are all so thankful to what we receive from the organizations, but we want to know what your thoughts are on stewardship. How do you like to be thanked by the nonprofits that you support? And then the second half of that question is on reporting. Do you like a follow-up report, formal report of the gifts that you've made? Or do you have a preference to receive maybe some data or pictures or stories or research? So on the subject of the stewardship, what do you like? What do you not like? And then how do you prefer your organizations to give you the feedback of what they've done with your gift?
Do a great job. That is the short answer. We wouldn't give to an organization if we didn't think that they were not producing good results or of value to the community. So we don't require reporting at Terminix. We just want to maybe keep the relationship and see that work continues to be done at a high level. So that's personally, that's also what I would want.
Excellent. How about you, Stephanie? You got a big smile on your face.
Agree. I mean, that's so helpful to see that. You know, we don't need a plaque. We don't need a large gift or anything like that. You know, really just if you feel like you need to do something, a thank you note is fine. You know, that's thank you enough, honestly. And I'll share it with our leadership and, you know, make sure that it gets known. But certainly don't need a gift or a plaque or anything like that. I will say that as far as the type of information that we would look for following a grant, there's not a formal process per se, not specific information that you would have to share with us, but I will say probably some of our best partners are proactive in that and that they are giving us an update either regularly or, you know, if it's event specific, following that event and letting us know the outcomes, if there are photos to share, you know, that sort of thing, which again, I'll then pass on to our leadership as well. So it just helps further increase awareness of the partnership that took place and the results associated with it. So that's always helpful to have, but there's no specific formula that we have to have as far as that's concerned. Again, it goes back to that relationship and cultivating that and seeing how well the collaboration worked and then maybe what we could do even better if we were to do that next time as well.
Okay, great. Elizabeth, how about you?
Yeah, a good thank you letter goes far. You know, a good thank you letter, but please don't include an ask for next year. Just a thank you letter is fantastic. And really, you know, we share those internally with our employees. We have a publication that comes out and, you know, I'll gather some really great ones and put them in there because I want employees to see that impact. You know, as far as the reporting back, I mean, kind of the same thing that Stephanie said. We have started kind of wanting kind of evaluation reports after, you know, X number of months after an event has occurred. And we really do that more for program versus event-based activities. But all of those data points of what we can use to share internally with our employees, share externally with you know, our customers, our members, share those on social media, share those in our publications. We want to be able to tell your story. So when you provide that data to us, it helps build that relationship. It helps our employees learn more about your organization. It helps create future donors, future volunteers from within our employee base. So, and it, you know, helps us be an advocate for you too. You know, the next time a request comes, it gives us that much more insight to how successful you've been, and it makes it easier, especially if we have to make a case for our senior leadership as to why we should continue to support this organization.
Great. Dom, anything to add on your end?
I would say that the gift of a great story is always the best thank you.
Right.
Right. So if you hear of an impact on an individual person that you've contributed in some way, you know, it was, you know, to me, that's very meaningful. When I was working a little bit with Heifer International in Arkansas, they would, you know, sell goats and sheep and as tokens. You can essentially, that's how they raise their money. They said, well, you can contribute to our mission and you can buy this half of the sheep that's going to feed this family in Africa for a year. Well, you know what, I used to joke with their CEO, Joe Luck. I said, you know, Joe, they just paid for half of your carpet in your office with the donation, right? They didn't really buy that cow, but the story of making it really tangible. Here's what it costs to have an impact on this child, on this person, and then writing that story back to the funder, to the supporter. Here's how your funds were used, even if you can't trace that particular dollar. I think it makes it really tangible, and those do get shared around the organization. If we get a thank you note, we pass it around to our whole team.
Excellent. I think we hear a good common theme between all of y'all. Thank you notes that y'all can share with the rest of the group is really important, as well as those impact stories. So we have 2 questions left, and we'll quickly run through those to leave time for our Q&A. The next question is, do you have a separate expectation for event sponsorships versus outright donations?
Nope.
Trevor says no. How about you, Stephanie?
Say that we have 2 buckets of funding. So the majority of our funding comes from our foundation. So if we are supporting an event via our foundation, we are not able to accept tangible benefits. That would be tickets and tables, etc. So if we're funding it via our more sponsorship related budget, that does allow us to accept some of those types of benefits when applicable. So, just knowing what those options are is helpful. We may not take advantage of them, but just having awareness of what options may be available. But going back to a lot of what we've said throughout this conversation, I think the most important thing we look for, especially for events and sponsorships, are how can we work together to tell your story, what the event is and how it's ultimately, helping you achieve your mission. And are there opportunities for us to collaborate, whether it's social media, us sharing information internally with our employees, et cetera. Those are things that we look for, when we're looking at those types of events and activities as well.
Elizabeth?
Yeah, pretty much along the lines of what Stephanie said. We do both, and we evaluate and look at both. We don't take on sponsorship opportunities just because we know our name is going to be out there. A lot of times, our CEO had even said, he sees the value of having our name on the back of a Little League shirt versus on a billboard. I'm sure the marketing folks would feel differently about that, but I think kind of those grassroots opportunities are a lot of times are just so meaningful. On a Saturday, I'll be in Lowe's and I see all these little, soccer shirts with our logo on, and it makes you feel good. But yeah, I think along the lines of what Stephanie said, we're kind of the same way. We feel the same way.
Wonderful. Dom, anything to add on that, or should we move on?
I would say, in our case, we don't distinguish, but I do share Elizabeth's comments too. I think a lot of the sponsorships, if you're offering someone a sponsorship and put their logo in a little pamphlet on the desk, that's not nearly as meaningful as making them visible otherwise in the community as a key partner. And so, when I get these packets for sponsorships and they say you're going to be featured in this half-page ad along with 20 other organizations, I say, oh, that doesn't, that's not part of our mission. It's not really making our impact in the community any greater. We want to make sure that we are actually hitting the mark for addressing the issues that we care about, and that kind of advertising doesn't do much. I just focus on the higher value add, like having the visibility and supporting those teams is probably bigger bang for your buck.
Excellent. So our last question is just a simple yes or no. And Trevor, I'll start with you on this one. Do you match gifts made by your employees?
We do not, no.
Okay, Elizabeth?
We match for disaster relief, but it just kind of depends on the circumstances. We've been matching ETV contributions, but we do support, our employees bring opportunities to us, and we do typically try to support that, especially if the employees are actively involved and engaged with those organizations.
Okay, Stephanie?
Yes, we do. If they're eligible 501c3 organizations and an employee has given a minimum gift of $50 or more, we'll match that. And then in addition, we match employees with their volunteer time as well. So if an employee volunteers 20 hours or more with one nonprofit or multiple nonprofits, they're also eligible to submit a request for what we call a Dollars for Doers grant that ultimately goes back to the nonprofit as well.
Excellent. Dom?
I don't have a simple yes or no answer to that, unfortunately. But I guess in the total spirit that the answer is generally yes. If we know that our colleagues are supporting a particular organization, and then they come to me, hey, would you support this partner? I'm volunteering, I'm supporting them. Then the answer is typically yes. We want to support our employees in finding organizations that are important to them and their family and their lives.
Wonderful. Thank you all so very much for that. And we're going to jump over to Mary Dell for our Q&A now. And if we go over 1 o'clock, but you'd like to stay on for the Q&A, please feel free to do so. But we understand if you have to jump off after 1. So Mary Dell, over to you.
Beth, I'm actually going to leave it with you because my Zoom crashed, so I have lost all record of the chat.
Oh no.
So
Okay.
I'm gonna let you run through it and see what we missed and have not answered yet.
Okay, great. So I'm seeing a few here. So this one is from Kate with Ren. As many of the panelists have said, COVID has highlighted a lot of economic, health, racial, and gender disparities that have existed for a long time. Are there any conversations going on within your organizations about how your future giving priorities or strategies can support systemic change that help us get to the core issues creating these disparities? So I'll let y'all just jump in as you feel led.
I can say there's been a conversation here and there, but when it comes to directing our community engagement, again, like I said, it's like when it comes to trying to find our best fit, it hasn't changed sort of that direction. And again, we hope that our participation in the community is going to help lift those who are who need it most.
Excellent. Anyone else? Okay, our next question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I mean, I think kind of like what we said before. I mean, it's, these are issues. I think these issues have been amplified, and I think it's definitely on our radar more so, probably more so than it was before. It probably is going to get a little bit more attention. And I think, we evaluate and look at what we've done in the past and what we can do in the future, what we can do to strengthen some of these relationships we have with many of these organizations, and not just from a philanthropy perspective, but what we can do across the entire footprint of for the entire company in many different areas. I mean, diversity, inclusion issues, that affects everybody. That's not just the corporate philanthropy program. So I think it's a conversation that the company is having, and a lot of different lines of businesses are doing their own initiatives to kind of, address these issues.
Excellent. Okay, so we'll move on to the next question. This is coming in from our friend Joey Wallace. I feel like we simply can't thank and recognize our corporate donors and sponsors enough. What advice would you have for nonprofits in general in terms of the best, most meaningful ways to show appreciation to our corporate partners? So I think we kind of touched on that a little bit, that thank you notes are very important, as well as those impact stories. Is there anything else that y'all would like to add to Joey's question other than what we've talked about?
I would just add that, hi Joey, that you don't have to necessarily overthink it. A simple thank you is really great. That being said, if you do have something that's, that makes sense based on your mission and what you do, one example that I think of off the top of my head is an educational group that we supported last year, and they had some of the recipients of the educational program just do a quick, iPhone type video and send it to us as a thank you. Well, it was just really meaningful. It was very quick, 30 seconds maybe, but we then shared it with our employees, and it helped us further, demonstrate the work that we were doing with that group. And so it helped, others within our company, learn more about the group overall. So, it was just a fun way to get a different type of thank you, but by no means is that necessary. It was just a slightly different, creative way to say thank you.
Excellent. Anyone else want to add to that? And again, I think some of the questions came. Go ahead, Elizabeth. I'm sorry.
I was going to say the great thing too, I know there were many times that I've called on Joey because I had a question or needed him to pull some data for us, from the United Way. I think, what you all do out in the community is really immeasurable and is so valuable. And you're able to help us do our work when we have these questions that pop up, and you can be so responsive. And, we might ask you 12, times in 1 week to provide us with some sort of report. That's the relationship that is so valuable and helps us do what we do and further your missions too. So we're appreciative of that.
Wonderful. All right. And so again, some of these questions came in earlier before we had gotten through our list. So this one is from Elizabeth, who is one of our board members. What do you think are the biggest mistakes nonprofits make when making an ask? Ooh, good question.
I will say that, especially if it's a group we've not worked with before, or maybe there's been turnover with an organization and it's a new person that we've not had the chance to work with before, they may not realize that it's not a decision that we're going to make that same day. Depending on the ask and the scope of the program and the needs related to it, it could take anywhere from 2 to 6 months. So, I think that's why that ongoing communication and relationship is so important, because it does allow us to kind of see what your timelines and deadlines are, but also, ensure that you have all the information relevant from our end as well when you're applying for a grant, so that it ultimately is, hopefully resulting in a good partnership for all involved. But if we get a request on a Monday and you need a decision by a Friday, I can't promise you that we can do that. So, having a little bit of time and recognizing that while we are looking at grants throughout the year, we also, there's some time involved with that as well.
Indeed. Dom?
I would say not knowing exactly what the donor or the corporation cares about. So not understanding the exact objectives that they have. And then, it becomes a complete waste. Also, cold calls or cold, just a letter, a generic package, that's probably not a good use of one's resources. But really, I would turn that question into a positive. What I think is the most effective ask, particularly in the corporate space, is find out exactly what the organization cares about. So, is this part of our mission? Or the person making the decision, what do they care about? What would make them successful in their job? Not just make a sort of a blanket ask, but really try to find that connection with that. And keep in mind, some of the corporate giving is not the same as foundation giving. The foundation giving has a primarily objective of mission. If I wanted to be cynical, I could add some other comments to it. But the primary goal is to do mission work. But in terms of a corporate entity, they have a mission and margin objective, right? So they're trying to drive their business and as well as accomplish their mission. So keep that in mind when you're making the ask.
Okay, and Elizabeth?
Well said by both of them.
Okay, great. And Trevor, anything to add?
I think it was good.
Okay, great. So our next question is from Latasha, also a board member. What advice would you give to a professional new to philanthropy and development? Example, best practices and how to prepare for the ups and downs. Elizabeth, you want to take that one? You 21 years doing that.
I guess it's just, you believe in what you do, you believe in the organization that you represent, the story, you know what those milestones are. I think just being able to share that, being able to be tenacious isn't the right word, but I think, truly believing in what you're bringing to the corporation, and knowing that a no 1 year is not an indefinite no. It might just not be the right time. There might be a different focus that the company is taking that year. Maybe you just need to kind of retool your ask in a different way. I mean, we've seen that happen time and time again. So I think, we want to, I always try to tell people, I try to advocate for every single organization that approaches us. I try as much as I can to make sure that, our CEO has a full picture of the history of the organization, who maybe their board members are. If I don't know anything about them, I'll try to do some research just so, to help him come to a decision. So, it's a partnership. We want to help you. We want to be there for our community. So, we're an ally.
Wonderful. Who else would like to add to that question?
One thing I would say too is as much as you're able to build allies within your own industry, other fundraising professionals, groups like this are a great example. I know, my background was originally public relations, and when I moved into the philanthropy role about 10 years ago, one of my first calls was to Elizabeth, and just to talk with her and, get some insight and recommendations and input, just to learn from someone who was doing a very similar role as me. And she was wonderful and continues to be a wonderful friend and colleague in this space. So, as much as you're able to do that, I think that's always great to learn from others too.
Wonderful. Anybody else? Well, it looks like our final comments are all thank yous from people to y'all about how much they really appreciate everything. Let's see, and that they said it's been very helpful. Okay, so the last.
I'll jump in as we're wrapping up and just say thank you to our panelists. One, for everything that you do every day to provide meaningful work and employment opportunities for our community, but also for the investments that you make in our nonprofit sector and the partnerships that you have with us as fundraisers. We always appreciate the section, and there's kind of a running joke that we're gonna one day do like a Real Housewives of New York tell all on the couch with you guys for like a special fee. I'm pretty sure people would give their eye teeth to hear the unfiltered version, but we always appreciate what you're willing to share with us and your support and advice for the Association of Fundraising Professionals. We will be gathering again in May on May the 13th for our planned giving workshop. Thanks to everybody who's hung on. Again, we've been recording this, so we'll send out the recording for those who had to jump off a little bit early. And we really appreciate everybody being here and taking the time to be part of AFP and to lift up our philanthropic community. A special thanks to Trevor and Don for joining us for the first time. We really appreciate the opportunity to include you in this panel and the insight that you provided. And Stephanie and Elizabeth, it would never be the same without y'all. So thank you for always being there for us. So we hope everybody has a great day. Feel free to stay on and provide any other feedback, commentary, or social interaction that you need. If you're still working at home like I am for the most part, then otherwise we will see you later.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Stephanie. Good to see you.